Hi, Peter Boolkah here, and welcome to today's edition of The Transition Guy, where we're going to be discussing the whole area around communication and meeting rhythms. When I mention meetings, I get a really blank look, as in a look of disgust, because most business owners do not know how to run meetings. So the reality is, unless you've worked for a corporate, where you get all the training on how to run meetings, etc., and actually the techniques you need to use, how to write agenda, etc., most business owners just tend to wing it. Yeah, they come up with a great idea, then they start hiring people, then they'll have a meeting, the meeting doesn't go to plan, and then they get really pissed off with the whole meeting because they're not getting the results that they want, and then they lose the whole passion for having the meetings. The reality is you cannot scale a business efficiently without having the right meeting and communication rhythm in your business, and that's a fact. See, people need direction, people need clarity, people need a feedback loop. People need to learn how to work with one another. See, the beauty around having team meetings is that it's the word team, you see. People are together, they get to experience. Because if you don't have meetings, guess what tends to happen? People just get on with their work. And when people work in isolation, they tend to then form silos. And when we have a silo being formed, it means basically, I'm just going to look after my stuff and nothing else. It promotes independence. It doesn't promote interdependence. And when you have interdependence in a business, that's when you get the massive value. The reality is meetings have different purposes, and therefore you've got to establish the right meeting rhythm in your business that serves the right purpose. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about meeting rhythms and get into the detail on what a good meeting rhythm in your business really should look like, then there's a book I can recommend called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And actually, in episode 007, I actually started to talk about scaling up and mastering the Rockefeller habits, where most of this stuff comes from. So when we talk about meeting rhythms, you've got different ones. So we'll start with a daily huddle. Because the daily huddle is very much about quick synchronization. Now, if you're a larger organization, you will tend to do this in your departments. If you're a smaller organization, you may do this as a whole. Now, in the largest organizations where you have the departments, you've got two ways of doing it. You can either do it bottom up, where the departments have their huddles in the morning, and then the executive team have their huddles. And if it's a smaller business, you don't have to worry about that because you don't have that problem. So what's the daily huddle about? It's about quick synchronization. It's about us exactly finding out a metric update. Where are we with our KPIs? What are the numbers saying? How did we perform? It's about us thinking, okay, what am I working on today? Now, this is really important because what you don't want to do is you don't want duplication in your business. And very often, as the business becomes bigger and you have more people, if you're not careful, it becomes inefficient because you get a lot of crossover. Now, you want to avoid the crossover as much as you possibly can. And the other thing is making sure where are people stuck. Because I can't tell you the number of times I speak to business owners, and I was sitting on huddles, I listen to the team huddles, and actually people are stuck. And unless you move people from their stuck and free them up so they can get on, they become unproductive because they dwell on the stuck, they sit on it, they procrastinate, we don't deal with the issue, and hell's to priest, what happens is we don't move forward at the pace we should. So daily huddle, quick synchronization. Then you've got your weekly meeting. Now you have your weekly meetings in departments, and you have your weekly meetings as an executive team. And really the weekly updates all around priorities. Are we on track to hit our 13-week sprint? Now you're going to say to me, well, Peter, what's the 13-week sprint? Well, a 13-week sprint is the year divided into 4 segments, 4 13-week sprints. And it's all about setting out what the priorities are going to be. What is it you want to achieve? Now, having a weekly meeting dealing with the priorities may be a challenge if you don't have priorities set. This is one of the biggest challenges also that SMEs and their sort of privately owned businesses have. So many of them do no form of planning whatsoever. In fact, this is their planning. We're going to wing it. Well, winging it can only get you so far. Eventually, it needs to be a lot more structured, especially if you want to get through the different seasons of business. So you need to learn how to put in a plan. And on the weekly meeting, not only do we look at priorities, but it's to have a metric update. As a business, how did we perform? And actually, as a business, really, what do we need to focus on? Is there anything we just need to fix? Now, a daily huddle should be no more than 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the team. Whatever you do, it needs to be standing up. Daily huddles are always standing up because we don't want people to get too comfortable. Our weekly meetings are between 60 and 90 minutes and no more than that. And you have it agendized. Always have an agenda in place so that you come to the meeting with a purpose. You see, and the one thing I love about agendas is you get an agenda in place, people know what's going to be covered, people come to the meeting prepared. See, that's probably one of the biggest things that piss business owners off, is when you go into the meeting and no one's prepared. A 90-minute meeting takes 3 or 4 hours, but that's not a good use of anybody's time. Then we have the monthly meetings. Now, the monthly meetings is really to tackle big issues. It's for us to do a bit of strategy, for us to solve one big problem, but more importantly, as a business scales, it's our opportunity as a leadership team to transfer down the DNA of the business. Because the last thing you want is for it to lose its character, lose the thing that made it great in the first place. And normally who attends a monthly? It will be your senior team, your frontline managers, and your middle managers. Again, the smaller the team, the smaller the number of people who actually attend the meeting. Now, I always advocate, where possible, having your monthly meetings off-site. Now, the reason I say off-site is because you do not want to be distracted. And unfortunately, when you do them off-site, there is that danger and temptation that people will not be present. So where possible, it needs to be off-site, and always allocate a minimum of half a day. I always say do a day, because the more time you get to spend with one another, the closer you become as a team. And then you have your quarterly rhythms. Now, this is normally 1 day off-site, where you start planning the next quarter. And this is with the whole executive team. Now, if you're not doing currently any quarterly off-sites, and you're not planning the next quarter ahead of you, do not be surprised when things do not go to plan. Because if you don't have a plan in place, what do you think is going to happen? Things will just happen that you don't necessarily desire. And then the final sort of meeting rhythm is your 2-day annual off-site, where you're actually doing your plan for the following year. And I always say that if you're doing a plan for the following year, you always make sure that you do it 1 quarter in advance. Because by the time you've got the plan for the next year in place, by the time you do all the things that you need to get everything ready, you need that quarter to prepare for the year ahead and communicate it, etc. And that's meeting rhythms. It's a really big topic, nothing that we're really going to nail in today's session. All I wanted to do today was really bring to your attention the whole importance of communication. And yes, the bigger we become as a business, the more we need to communicate. And if we don't like communication, we don't like having meetings, well, don't ignore it. And whatever you do, stop dodging it. Because all you're going to do is make your company weaker. The 2 resources I suggest you go and read up on if you want to get into a greater understanding of what meeting rhythms are and how you can get better at them is read Scaling Up by Vern Harnish and read Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni. 2 great reads. Also, I have covered in episode 7 the whole Rockefeller habits. That's worth a rewatch. Now, for a lot of people out there, you're going to say, well, I don't have time to read. Therefore, how can I really speed this whole thing up? Well, if you've got a more direct question around meetings, meeting rhythms, and how they are working or not working in your business, head over to Boolkah.com and get in contact. And remember, doing nothing really isn't an option. If you want to get better at this stuff, you're going to have to learn this stuff, you're going to have to practice this stuff, and you're going to have to change who you are. Because at the end of the day, Failing to learn is learning to fail.